I do love making connections with people. So the more I can do that with people who are just kind of tickled over the same things that
Mhm.
I am, it's really fun when you can find people who are as excited as you are,
Yeah.
or at least find you funny because you are like geekily excited about something.
Welcome to today's episode. Today I have with me Angela Pingel. So welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. I'm so excited to chat with you. I had only seen your book nerd pattern before, and
Oh, okay.
we actually made something for a client, just a wall hanging out of 4 of the books off of it. And so that's where I found you. And I was like, oh my gosh, her stuff is so cool. And so this is exciting.
Oh, you're super sweet, and you're definitely my favorite person today. So,
Oh, thank you.
for even saying that, yeah, the book nerd pattern is pretty popular these days, which is really fun. It means I get to see. I'm a total book nerd myself, and so to see all these quilts made from so many different fabrics and people who want to have different book covers, it just tickles me. It really makes me quite happy. But yeah, I've got that one going, and then there's a few others out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Your stuff is so cute. So, um, but before we get into that too far, I want to just hear about how you got into quilting. Like, has it always been a part of your life, or did it come to you later?
Yeah, I kind of brought myself to quilting, and I have been sewing. He used to tell this story because I'm so super cool that I started sewing when I was really little. Um, and there's actually a whole long story behind this beautiful. I have 4 brothers. I'm the only girl. There was this beautiful dress with petticoats and ruffles, and it was pink. And I saw a picture in a pattern book, and I was like, Mom, I want this dress. And she had no patience for any of that or time, and said, well, if you want to make that, you're going to have to learn how to sew it. And so I was pretty little. I mean, I would say I was like 8 or so, and just said, okay, so I need to be taught how to sew. And so it's a long story. It took off from there. I ended up doing a lot of garment sewing, which is easier on a child's body where there's not much tailoring, right? And you can kind of just, or you don't care what you look like quite so
Right.
much. So right around when, for me, when sewing for myself got a little more, perhaps more difficult, like around 17, 18, I actually worked at Joanne Fabrics. It was my second job. My first job was working in a library. So I do both both things. I was like, books, okay, and now fabric. And I had no idea, hadn't really paid attention to quilting before that. And I when I worked there, all of a sudden you have these people who would come up to the counter with 25 different bolts and say, I want a quarter yard of each one. And that is such a different way to acquire fabric. And I had never, the concept of a fabric stash
Mhm.
was not anything that I knew. All I knew was I'm making an outfit, I buy the fabric for that outfit, the yardage required, and then I get rid of my extra scraps when it's left over.
Yeah.
Not so much anymore. It doesn't work that way.
A whole
Um,
different ballgame.
yeah, quilting brings in a whole different world, and just working with 100% cotton, which I'm not sure I had technically worked with
Yeah.
necessarily before that. So anyways, it was actually through working at Joanne Fabrics that I came to know what a quilt was, and that there were people who just bought fabric because they loved it. and they didn't know what they were going to use it for. They just knew someday they'd use it.
Yeah.
And so I made my first quilt for myself for my freshman dorm room in college. And again, like I say, I'm so super cool that way. And I did that while I was pursuing a degree in mathematics. So
my husband has a math degree. That's so cool.
Yeah. Well, so the nerd factor's high. It goes up the whole way there. Like, and I can keep going with it. But yeah, I think that's why I have pink hair now. So I can be like, wait, life is fun. And, not that I don't think all those things were fun at the time, but
yeah.
I was very much a rule follower in all ways. So yeah, learned to taught myself to sew, and it's been great.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think because I didn't know about really quilting or anything until the last probably 7 or 8 years. But my mom has always sewn, and so I was always around it. Garment sewing. She used to make my clothes. She used to make play clothes, and she made my formal dresses all growing up. And so I understand that, like, the completely different mind shift where fabric is involved and how you buy fabric. Because when you're buying garment fabrics, you're buying yards and yards to make the outfit. But when it comes to quilting, you buy all these little bits, and it's definitely a different ball game.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I did the whole make my prom dress, make my flower girl dresses, altered my wedding dress thing. That was all in there. I looked at making my wedding dress, and even at the time, the patterns, I don't know, I couldn't find what I wanted. It was 20 years ago. So I just ended up buying something very simple and trying, I don't know, the styles it was like right before simple was in style again.
Right.
There was still just like a lot of cheap polyester satin lace stuff out there, and the J. Crew factor had not quite kicked in. Like that was going to become a thing within the next few years after that, and just keep it simple and streamlined.
Yeah. Oh man.
But
I can't imagine making a wedding gown. That's a lot.
Yeah, I just made my daughter a clown costume yesterday.
Really? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So she's 12 and she's a dancer, and they have dance camp, and the theme for the camp is circus. And she decided she wanted to be the cutest clown. She's actually like terrified of clowns. So I think this is her taking charge of that fear. And she wanted to be the cutest clown that there ever was. And so I just dropped everything for the last 48 hours and worked on a clown costume.
That's a good way to go about attacking your fears.
Yep.
Kind of become it.
Right?
But in a cute way.
Absolutely. I was all for it. She's got a pink and white checked clown costume. So what's not to love?
That's cute. How fun. Yeah, I think that's like such a fun way to grow up, having a mom that can make stuff for you. Like I really appreciate that. So hopefully she does now and can appreciate as she gets older, because that's so cool.
Yeah, I've made quite a bit for her to date. So last year I made my first bathing suit, which I was like, ooh, which still sounds scary to me now. And I've made a few of them. Yeah. So but it's all about having the right materials and the right needles and machines and all that stuff. So
yeah,
it's doable once you dive in, but I kind of I feel like there's so many things I know and or once knew that I have to reteach myself all the time if I want to get on. Quilting is pretty much the thing, I can do a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I will eye that for the rest of my life. There will be no forgetting what that looks like.
It's like ingrained in your brain forever.
Yes. Yeah. I can look at anything and I'm like, that's not a quarter inch, like in any context of the world, because I'm so
Mhm.
aware of what a quarter inch seam allowance
Mhm.
is.
Yeah. You're like, your seams are off.
Right, right. Or like, I don't know what that measurement over there is, but I can
Yeah.
tell you.
Right. You're like, I don't know what you were using, but it was not a quarter inch.
Yeah. Or there's the people who are like, why do you measure it? Why do you tell me like, oh, it's 2¼ inches, like, when they're measuring a piece of something else, whatever, furniture. And I'm just like, because I work in quarter-inch increments. In fact, I work in 1/8 inch increments if I need to. So you're lucky I didn't drop it to a 16th.
You're like, just be grateful that I'm giving you a quarter inch.
Yes. Yes. This is as relaxed as I get.
Oh my gosh.
Quarter-inch increments. I think I need to put that on a shirt. Quarter-inch increments, as relaxed as I get.
I love it. I would buy it.
Yeah, me too.
That's hilarious. Well, so like, did sewing and all that, like all your life, did that impact your decision to do mathematics? Or like, I don't know, like, does it inform your sewing? How does that play into what you do now?
I think it was just that it was it was my hobby for so long. And then because I love mathematics, the idea of quilting was eye-opening, that you could take geometric concepts and actually make something really practical out of it, because ultimately that's often what sewing is for me, making things that are pretty and practical.
Mhm.
And so I was never afraid of the math behind it. And so I think people will not even get started in it, because all they'll see is triangles or squares or, God forbid, a circle, and just say like, those crazy shapes, I don't want to deal with those.
Right.
Or I'm never going to measure anything by a quarter inch. So
Mhm.
that's going to be an issue. And yeah, so I did the math degree, and I taught math to high school students for a couple of years. And then I went back to school and got another degree in interior design.
Oh.
So, and it was there that I really fell in love with color theory and layout. And so I was doing that, and the whole time I was getting my design degree, I thought, well, maybe I should have been an architect, because that has the math and the artistry
Yeah.
component to it. And then I finally was accepting of the fact that no, I'm not meant to be an architect. I'm actually, like, it's a legit thing to be a quilt pattern designer. Like,
Mhm.
that's an actual career.
Yeah.
And then to take it into so I wrote a book, and I did classes, and I could teach. I'd had experience teaching in a classroom, so teaching mathematics, which is a very precise thing that a lot of people hate, and you have to be the cheerleader for it. So
Right. Yeah.
so teaching people who want to learn to quilt is like the simplest thing to me, by contrast. When you're used to teaching some, like the algebra that everyone hates,
Right.
and you've got to force them, like, no, this, trust me, like, this is training your brain how to think through a problem.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I had kind of a roundabout way that all makes sense now, but um I wouldn't have looked at myself at 15 or 18 or even 25 and known this is what I was going to do. And I look at I just turned 43, I'll say, and a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like, okay, well, technically, I think in this day and age, I'm probably in the middle of my life,
Mhm.
right? Because you could easily live till 86. And
Yeah.
I'm like, if I've only lived half of my life, how much more am I going to do in
Mhm.
my life? And is that going to be fabric related, design related, quilt related? Like, I don't know. I don't think I'm going to go become like an Olympic skier at this point, but
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
there's other things in the world. So I think it'll be interesting. I just see this as like a moment in where I am in my journey.
Yeah.
So I love the pattern design, and I love being able to share that. And then I love fabric design, and I um, I still have a fair amount of imposter syndrome when it comes, especially to fabric design, um, because the word artist is such a heavy word for me. It's not a freeing word. And I think it's freeing for some people, but for me, it implies a lot of knowledge, and it is for me like what the word math is for other people. You know, the same heaviness they get when they hear that word. That's what I get when I could never be right. I could
I heard
never
that a
do
lot as a
that. Who
teacher.
enjoys that? Yeah, yeah. So that word is still a hard one for me, and I'm trying to embrace it, and very much work from the taking steps forward, and being on a journey, and do the best that you can until you know better, and then do better in all walks of life, and not criticize who I currently am or who I previously was by improvements I make in what I'm doing, which all sounds very la-di-da, but really it just means that I want to make sure I'm having fun while I'm doing it now, and not have a lot of regrets.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm the one talking the whole time here.
No, that's great. You're the one who's supposed to be talking, not me. No, this is perfect. And I think I agree with you there. Like I had this vision of who I was going to be, and definitely doing a podcast and owning a quilting business with my mom were not two things on that list ever. I didn't know. And so then coming into this, and that imposter syndrome it hits hard some days. And I'm like, who do I think I am? But at the same time, like, I can't think of anything else I'd rather be doing right now. I feel happy. I feel fulfilled. I get to spend a lot more time with my husband. I get to spend a lot more time with my family. Like, it's flexible, and I'm doing something that I love. And I think, to your point of not criticizing who you are now or who you were then, or stressing about who you're going to be in 5 years, and just enjoying the moment that you're in is so important. And I think as our, society closes in, and it's, hustle, 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 I think those of us that step back from that and go, you know what, I actually want to do something that I love and not feel forced. And it just is like a breath of fresh air in all of the craziness. So
yeah, it's thanks for understanding. I don't reach that goal all the time by any means. And I do a fair amount of hustling and then collapsing.
Right.
So I'm trying to be more measured in my steps, so that I don't really want to work hard, play hard. I just want to do both, and be more even keeled. Because it really doesn't suit my personality. Deadlines are a good thing, I would say, for me, but not constant, perpetual push. Especially because I have a 12-year-old daughter, and she's my miracle girl, and I know everyone always tells you like, oh, they're only home for so long, and then other people laugh and say, what? They never actually leave. But I haven't gotten to that point yet. So I'm only in the 12-year-old. She's 12, entering teen world, and needs a mom more than ever, right? To be there to listen to whatever she's feeling at the moment. And I can just try to empathize and carry her through those moments. And that takes a fair amount of energy on my part. So if I've given that all to my business or to my house or whatever it is, I won't have that for her. So
Right.
especially for the next few years, like I just know she and my husband's a full grown adult with his own therapist. So like he has at least another outlet.
Right. Right.
And so, for her, I know that I'm really the main resource of feedback that she gets and guidance. So in addition to other teachers she has in her life, but I'm going to be the one who's going to love her unconditionally through it all. And I want her to know that.
Yeah.
So I take the parenting aspect pretty seriously because it is such a gift to me that I was able to become a parent. And so it helps me to keep a little bit of perspective on what I'm doing. So that's why I drop everything and do the clown costume, even if she's going to wear it for 5 hours. And it's going to take me, 20 hours to make it.
Right.
Or whatever it is, like it's not a 1-to-1 ratio in any way of work to the time payoff, but for the love payoff, it's definitely there.
Right.
So
and now it just solidifies those memories and those, those feelings that mom's got my back. Like you're gonna be the one that's there for her no matter what. And I think, when you're parenting, that has to come before everything else sometimes. And I love that because I think where else are they going to find unconditional love, right? And
not very many places. And
right.
I know sometimes parenting means showing her that I am important and I have to take first priority for myself, and I have a job and I have dreams and I'm pursuing those. And so like she can't walk all over me, right? I'm not a total helicopter parent. Like my special snowflake child is perfect in every way, right?
Right.
It's more realistic than that. But it is, I just know that these years will always be, it's a certain amount of time. So when I'm saying like, oh, I'm 43, and within those 43 years, so far 12 of those years have had a daughter in them. That's a very finite, measurable quarter-inch amount of time that I am able to say like these are the years that we are together, live together, and can be together. So
my older stepson he's almost 21, but he joined the Air Force, but then went into the Space Force.
That's so cool.
In 2020, and literally the weekend he was graduating from basic training was the weekend that everything shut down. And so we didn't see him, and everything has just felt really crazy since then. And he was home this last week visiting, and my husband and I had just gotten back from a vacation because it's our 10th anniversary this year. And so we were like, we want to go do something big. And so we were, spent 2 weeks in Spain and did all this fun stuff. We got home to him being here, which was fantastic. But then I had to leave because I was going to a quilt class with my mom. And so, I got to spend like one full day with him and, little bits of time here and there before that. But while I was gone, it hit me so hard. Like, oh my gosh, like we spent, I've been his stepmom since he was 6. And like, he's been my buddy, and same with my husband. They're best buddies. And we're just like, oh my gosh, we have to grieve that time because we haven't allowed ourselves, because everything's just been like up in the air and just frantically
survive.
Yeah. And we both kind of realized like, oh my gosh, we haven't grieved that time when we got to spend so much time with him and he was in our home and we were, parenting him in that way and helping him hopefully become a successful, critical thinking human. And he's a great human. Like he's a good human. And so seeing him out there in the world, it's like a beautiful thing, but it's also so heartbreaking at the same time. So soak up all the minutes.
I'm not ready yet. I mean, and that's okay because she'll challenge me daily for the next number of years here. So I don't have to be ready yet. And I know that partly that's the challenge is gives you the ability to let them go and be those free thinking adults, young adults that they're meant to be. So I know I'm just part of it for the moment.
I'm like, he's out there
doing when to go to bed.
That didn't ever work for us. We're like, go to bed. Whenever I feel like it is fine.
Right.
But yeah, and I said this to my husband. I said, you know, we've done our job. Like we raised him and he's out doing the things that we taught him how to do. He's learning the lessons that he needs to learn. But that doesn't mean that we were ready for it. Like, you know, we're like, hey, we don't like this part. But also it's awesome to see that he can go out and function in society.
Yeah, I love the human being that she is becoming and the adult that I get glimpses of it, and it's and I've seen that, you know, since she was born, just the different, like, oh, I can tell you're gonna be like this, and sometimes I'm surprised by a personality trait that pops up, and but I'm, you know, we're playing the long game here, and I can see what kind of human being she's going to be and who, you know, what her joys are, and gosh, you got me talking about my daughter, so I'll talk forever about that. But anyways, that to be said, like it just is it's why sometimes I don't get some work done because I have some stuff to do for her. Try to be there for her. But then try to remember that she will move on and I will still be here. And I'm also not interested in giving everything up in the meantime.
Right. So. And that's important too, because I think if we don't show our kids how to care for themselves too, like that you have to prioritize yourself sometimes, like then they'll just grow into people pleasing, you know, they perpetuate that hustle and that people pleasing way that people can be. But I think if we are mindful about what we're showing them, like, you know what, I am my priority right now, and I need you to take a seat and I'll be with you when I'm ready. And like people might think that's mean, but I also am of the mind
that's called discipline. It's okay.
Yeah, it's like I'm of the mind that I'm my own person and not just your mom, and so, you know, or not just your wife or not just your daughter, like whoever it is in your life. I think, you know,
amen.
Prioritizing what you need to do for your business or just your own personal mental health, like sometimes it's got to happen. So it's good. I like it.
Needs to happen every day for me.
Yeah, me too. All the time. No. Well, so is she showing any interest in like quilting and sewing, or is she just like, you do it, mom?
I will be interested to see. I feel like she might be one of those kids who comes back around to it, like, oh, my mom always sewed when I was growing up, but I wasn't particularly interested in doing it. And she's done some, like we did a mother-daughter quilt bee, like with friends when she was fairly little. So like she was sitting on my lap quilting, but like strong-willed and independent, trying to help a strong-willed, independent, you know, 7-year-old work a sewing machine as an effort and futility. So anyway, so we've done things. She actually thinks much more three-dimensionally than me, and so she will just take fabric and like drape it over things and create that way. So in the way that I say I'm a mathematician, I'm always like, I'm a mathematician, not an engineer, meaning I think two-dimensionally and not three-dimensionally, which is why I tend to make quilts and not bags. I can do them, but it's not my brain. I have to put my brain in a different way of thinking. And so, so she tends to think more three-dimensionally, and
That's
does
fun.
just create shapes that way, and is a freer spirit than I am in a lot of ways. So just
Yeah.
with that fearlessness, can kind of tackle something and be like, I'll just make this. Like, okay, great.
Cool. Yeah. You're like,
And I'm
awesome.
like,
Well, go
I'm
for
going
it.
to write the pattern for it and test it 100 times and make 5 different versions of it, and then have other people make lots of versions of it, and then still sit here and think, is it good enough? Is it good enough? Is it good enough? Will anyone want to do it?
Right. I know that's tough. Like I need instructions, like, and it's funny because, working with my mom every day, it's like she can see something and go, oh, I can make that. And she'll sketch it out and make her own thing. And then she'll make it and it's beautiful. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I'm getting a little better at it, but my perfectionism kicks in and I'm like, what if I don't do it right? What if it's not good enough? Or what if I get and always when I shut that part of my brain down and go, nope, you know how to do this, like you quilt every day, like just remind myself of the things I can do, then it's not as hard, but it still can kind of, I get in my own head about it. But that's fun that she's willing to explore that and just wants to try things, and it's like fun to watch your kids be creative.
Yes, she's very creative, that's for sure. I don't know if it'll always be with fabric the way it has been for me, but right now it's a lot more with hair and makeup, which is just really sweet to watch too, because there's a lot of creativity that happens there. For sure. And just to watch all that blossom and styling, she could be she picks out, she's a better stylist for me than I am for myself these days. And I'm like, all right, you have full autonomy to pick out whatever jewelry I should be wearing or not wearing. And
that's fun.
Like, I'm happy to pass this off and let someone else make a good choice for me.
Right. Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
So with your you started pattern designing, but then when did you feel the pull to design fabric?
So I think, again, like that goes back to that artist word for me. And I have a much like easier time with the word design than I do. So I'm okay with saying designer. Um, Even saying like I drew something or painted something, they're all just they're skills that I think other people have mastered in a way that I never will. And so that's where the imposter part comes in, where you think, well, okay, I mean, I can create something cute, but these other people are amazing. Like that's who we should be celebrating. But it doesn't mean that they even want to be doing it, right? Like not people who can do it, just because you can doesn't mean you should, or doesn't mean you want to. Anyways, my desire to design fabric was really sort of the ultimate version of having total control over what a quilt would look like, or an item would look like. So it started with, oh, I enjoy creating, and then, oh, I can modify that pattern, and then, oh, I can make my own patterns. All right, I'm going to write my own patterns and teach them to other people. And like, oh, I'd really like to have control over what I'm making this with, like at the highest point.
Yeah.
And so when you get to that point, you're looking at like, what colors do I want to work with? Why can't I find what I want? So in some ways, it's a completely selfish endeavor. in that it's just like, well, I am looking for the things that I want to make. So I'm kind of always my own client, which is not necessarily the way to go, but it's a way to go. It doesn't my taste isn't necessarily like mass market approved. So it's an interesting, I think that's like what a lot of artists go through, right? If they're trying to be true to themselves, then it doesn't mean anybody else wants it. So trying to figure out a way to marry what you want with what other people want is the kind of business trick side to the fabric design or surface design in general. So the logic of that helps me get through it. That's where I'm like, oh, okay, that's why I can call myself a designer, and I don't start or stop with the word artist, because I always have to create, but I'm not so precious about my own point of view from understanding what sells. That's just part of the reality of this world. If you actually want to do something and make any money or have anyone enjoy it in any way, even if you're giving it away for free, I don't care, but it still has to be something that other people find appealing.
Right.
So now there's a lot to be said for authenticity, and the more authentic you are, the more people are drawn to what you're doing, because people don't want mass production. But there's this whole fine line of finding, this is my niche and this is weird. Right? Nobody wants to be doing this with me.
Right.
Like, I don't know. It's just funny. You can go down the internet has given us the ability to kind of find all kinds of tribes. So you can be like, well, I only want to create the Star Wars patterns with Star Wars fabrics for people who love all Star Wars things. Like, you can find those people, right? And I could do that for the rest of my life. And I'd never make any money because I don't own the rights to that. But if that's where my people were and my heart was, I would find that little group and happily exist there. But trying to, that is a very particular finite group. So I'm personally trying to do things that I'm like, what would someone like me be looking for? And I don't find myself with super unique taste. So I feel like there's enough of a market for what I want to be creating and what other people want to have out there. So that's where.
Nice. Well, and I mean, obviously your love of books is in there, and because you have your first line, was it your first line, The Curious?
Curious Dream.
Sorry.
Curious Dream. No, it's fine. I never can remember. It was supposed to be called Alice, and that's even what's printed on the salvage, and then it got changed at the last minute. So I'm always like, what's that fabric called? I don't know.
Curious Dream. Yeah. So it's Alice in Wonderland inspired.
Yeah.
And then your new one that just came out, Clueless, is Nancy Drew inspired.
Yes.
Which is so cute.
So yeah, they're just like, I am very drawn to things that are, I would say my style is whimsical is one of the first words I use to describe it. And so for me, Alice and Nancy are both, they are nostalgic, they are whimsical, fantastical, and just for people who know who they are or are familiar with their stories, they immediately bring a whole set of emotions to mind already. So good or bad, right? It's the hard thing about taking on a topic that people have a preconceived idea about.
Right.
So you're either trying to play into that and elevate it, or you're trying to combat how they feel about it.
Right.
So yeah, so but it's been really fun for the people who are like, oh, I used to read Nancy Drew, and they're like, oh, her best friend's Beth and George, and her boyfriend Ed Nickerson, and they could throw out all the names with me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, somebody else actually knows all this stuff just like I do.
Yeah.
It's like way to geek out with me, because
I love it.
yeah. So I my intention had been kind of to stick with literary inspirations, and I don't know if I'll keep that. It certainly worked for me so far.
Mhm.
Or if I'll just stick with like classical character
Mm.
inspiration, and not limit it to the platform of books. Maybe it's although most things that I'm still drawing from are originated in books at this point still, but first they could be songs, it could be so I tend to be inspired by stories of some sort,
Mhm.
essentially, versus I'm not the person who walks outside and it's like, look at that beautiful field. I'm going to create a collection that looks just like this field and reminds
Yeah.
me of the days when I was picking tomatoes in the sun with my grandmother. That it doesn't, like, I have total respect for people who can do that. It just isn't how I create.
Mhm.
Um, that might be how I relax, but it's not how I create.
Sure. Which is
Uh,
fair. I think we all draw inspiration differently, and it's evident in the millions of possibilities out there of different fabric design. And I I think when you can marry multiple things that you love in your life and bring it together to make something new, I think that is like the ultimate, I don't know, mark on the world, that you get to put that out there, like your love of books and your love of fabric and design. And I think that's
right.
amazing. I love that for that you get to share that with the world, and that there's other people finding you and being like, oh my gosh, a girl after my own heart. It just feels so
Right,
good to
right.
find that community and to make those connections. So
Yeah, no, I'm really excited to see how people react to the Clueless fabric line, and just because it when you're pitching something like that to your fabric company, they're like, who, Nancy, who, what, or like some people will know. I mean, some people know, and then they're like, but like maybe some of the women know,
yeah.
and the men don't, or vice versa, or they'll say like, oh, I read the Hardy Boys, and so they'll get really excited about that. But it yeah, you just never know when you're doing something nobody else has done. There's that risk of, does anybody want it?
Yeah.
So, and sometimes they don't even know until they have it and have worked with it, if they want it, or if they wanted more of it, or what colors they wanted it in, or what they were really looking forward to. So yeah, that's the mystery aspect of like, here's my heart, I hope you like it. I
Yeah.
just put it all out on a platter for you.
Like, please don't
Be
smash
gentle.
it. Yeah.
Yes. I'm like, I'm just a person,
Right. Like
just like
there's
you.
still,
I'm just a person.
yeah, there's still a human behind all this, I swear.
Right. I am the photographer and videographer and writer and creator, and I am all the things in addition to
Yep.
the, as mentioned before, mother, wife,
Mhm.
daughter.
Yeah.
So it's a lot to carry
Yeah.
at times, but I I really I do love making connections with people. So the more I can um, do that with people who are just kind of tickled over the same things that
Mhm.
I am, it's really fun when you can find people who are as excited as you are, or
Yeah.
at least find you funny because you are like geekily excited about something.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
that's sort of where I am.
I love that. Well, yeah, and I think ultimately, like, the whole purpose of this podcast is to make those connections and to highlight people that I'm finding joy from or that I'm inspired by. And so I think the more we can do that for each other, especially in the quilting community, the better we are. It breaks down those ideas of us versus them, or breaks down the idea that we're all alone, because we're not alone.
Yeah. The isolation is super strong these days. It's very hard to not feel isolated. I was literally just writing right before this something for an article that is called Pet Tales, and it is it's essentially an article that's written from the point of view of my two cats who spend the day with me while I'm creating. Yeah. And I was like, okay, in some ways, this is way too easy to write because I am just here with my cats all the freaking time. Yeah. And so I'm like, I could write a whole book on this. And it would still just be one day of them talking to me. And I'm like, right, real people. Okay, other people are going to read this. And like, wait, somebody else is going to relate because they're at home with their cats all day. And so, I'm trying to remind myself that even in my isolation, I'm relating to people and making connections with them.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's been, COVID certainly helped push all of us in an isolated manner. But I'm an introvert by nature and have some chronic health issues. So I tend to that's why I work from home anyways. And so I've always been like, I have shirts that say not a hugger. My husband got me a shirt that says I was social distancing before it was cool. So I'm the person, and then both my husband and daughter are quite, I think, touch is their love language. So I'm always like, why me? Like, don't touch me, touch somebody else.
You guys can hug each other, but I will be over here.
Yeah. I'm over here with the cats, and the cats even want to touch me. And I'm like, please, don't you know I'm an introvert?
Yeah, leave me alone. I know. I think it's funny because I'm very like, I'm not necessarily like, I'm going to grab you and hug you, but like with my husband, I want to like hold hands, or I'm like always like touching him. He's like, stop touching me, because he's a lot more introverted than I am, but I'm like, I just like, he's like, no, stop. And then he just like gets his hands in my face, and I'm like, okay, I'm sorry.
Right. No, it's super funny to watch. My daughter really, she'll be next to me and she'll be like, hug me. I'm like, I am.
Like, I'm right here.
What more? I don't even know how to hug you better than I'm hugging you.
What does
She's like, me.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, girl, it's okay.
That's so funny. Oh man. Well, so like, I guess did it, the pandemic and stuff, did it change anything for you, or like, did it, I guess, did it make you busier? Did it, because people were, like, oh, I have all this time, I can start quilting, and did you find reprieve in it, or did it kind of get crazy?
Definitely more of the reprieve, because I still remember the feeling during, especially those first 2 weeks, where nobody knew what was happening, and like, for all we knew, it was the apocalypse, right? Like, it was just, all we've been told is you need to go home. There's this thing coming. Maybe Tylenol will help.
Yeah, like, good luck.
Like that's all I remember. Pretty much. Like, I think we were buying, and there's no toilet paper to be found for whatever reason. And if you've got this, all you can take is some Tylenol. So I still have a huge bottle of Tylenol that I bought at Sam's Club, like right before, going like, I don't know what we're going to need, but I've got the Tylenol, so we're going to be okay. Right. And anyway, so for those first 2 weeks and then thereafter, it was it was, you have to stay home. You're being a good human by staying home. You're doing the right thing by staying home. And it was no longer, oh, it's okay that you're an introvert and you don't want to get out too much and go and connect with people. Or if you don't feel well enough today, you're disappointing someone, but you can make it up to them another time. It was like, no, I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
I am the ultimate human being right now by being at home.
Right.
And not disturbing. Yes. So I actually, and because I already worked from home, I didn't have that huge adjustment. I mean, my daughter came home, but from school, but I didn't have a huge adjustment the same way most of the world had to working out of their house when they've previously been in an office of some sort. And so I was like, oh, more of the same. Like, this is great. Like, welcome to my world, everyone. This is what we do. We get on Zoom and we have conversations with people this way, and we work out of the house, and some days we get dressed and some days we don't. And
right.
you know, it is really lovely to have that freedom. And yes, I do drop my daughter off in my pajamas, and sometimes I pick her up in my pajamas because I still have not gotten dressed, you know. Yeah, so I will say that as it continued, I ended up homeschooling my daughter for the next school year. And so that it wasn't that I didn't have time for what I wanted to do, but a lot of my creative energy was going towards teaching her and trying to make that a really interesting experience. Because God forbid I follow someone else's program, I have to create my own way to do it. So it's kind of exhausting being me. Yeah. So I will say that there were parts of that year that were tricky to push, continuing to be creative. I think I was doing more like follow-up work on things. And I just had to get off of social media a lot more because so many people by that point were done with life, and they wanted to tell everyone that they were done with life in some way or form, and it wasn't usually a nice way. So I kind of backed off social media there for, I mean, it wasn't too long, but certainly like a good 6 months where I was just like, you know what, that's not good for my mental health. So I will take a step away. And I've done that before and come back, and it's a good thing to do. It's very, for all of us, it's good to know that sure, all of this can continue without us in it, or we can participate in it. And so therefore the commitment to post something every day or have a thought on every single topic of the world. I'm like, you know what? I can't, I'm not called to be everything for everyone all the time. So I just have to be responsible for what I know I'm supposed to be doing. And so I in that sense, like in the fact that a lot of business and not being isolated comes from being on social media in this industry, because you couldn't, I mean, everybody was starting to sew. It was really interesting. Like in some ways there was this huge boost of people who were doing things. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. And then I was like, okay, you're all exhausting. I need to go away.
You're like, you know what? You have fun. I'm going to be over here by myself.
Right. I was by myself before over here, and you guys were at work. And so that kind of worked out. But now you're all at home. And so you're taking over my home space. And so I need to like really leave again. So, and we're kind of switching back. I see it switching back to, and then in the meantime, like TikTok took over the world. And so now we're, I'm not on TikTok personally, just because my brain can't handle another social media platform.
It's a lot.
Yeah. But I mean, I have nothing against it. I find it very entertaining. And I find myself making Instagram's version with reels now.
Yeah.
And I know at first, I think I, like everyone, was just frustrated that about this game that we're playing of, oh gosh, if you want to share anything, that you've got to do a song and dance with it,
Right.
literally.
Yeah.
And now I'm just trying to lean in, because if I'm not enjoying it, then I should be doing it. So I'm not gonna sit there and complain that this is what it's become. I can, if I'm gonna complain, then I should get off the platform and find an alternative. And if I'm gonna stay, then I should be okay with how it changes,
Mm-hmm.
And be the version of me who's comfortable in whatever way on that kind of
Yeah.
platform then. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm okay making a fool out of myself fairly regularly. So especially intentionally, you know, I making people laugh is very much enjoyable, or being able to teach things. It's just the technology, I think, that more than anything that
Yeah.
gets to me, where I'm like, oh wait, and now I am all of a sudden a video editor, and
Mm-hmm.
I have video editing apps, and I've timed the rhythm of photos to the rhythm and beats of a song.
Right.
Yeah, oh, it's just
Yeah.
there's a lot of tap dancing going on.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a funny thing too, because there's all these, like, oh, get an Instagram coach, and they tell you to do all these things, and you got to make this many reels a week, and you got to make this many posts a week, and you got to make this many stories a week, and all this stuff. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I'm going to show up how I show up, and I try to be mostly consistent, but I think you're right. Like, there's all these different things out there. I have, yeah, I've tried to make TikTok, and it's one of those things where, like, I'd have to sit and learn a new skill, photo editing or video editing, and that's not my thing. Like, that's not my strong suit. So I show up how I show up, and if people follow me, cool, and if not, then I mean, I don't blame them. I'm not a song and dance, like, shiny,
Right.
look at me kind of,
Yeah.
presence. And I think part of that is just like, I don't really know what I'm doing, and so I don't
Oh,
really
nobody
show up
does.
that way. Yeah, right.
I mean,
So,
that's the beauty of it right now. You can do whatever you want, because nobody knows what they're doing, and everyone's just like throwing stuff at the wall, going, "Maybe this will work. Maybe this will work."
yeah.
Um, and it kind of like, really, like, watching videos of like wax pouring into molds is what we're doing now. Okay, like, it is
Yeah.
oddly soothing. Apparently, that I will be completely transfixed by that in some random song in another language I don't know. I don't like.
Yeah, I'm same. I'm like, why am I watching this right now?
Right. I'm like, but I can't take my eyes away.
I'm like, I can't turn it off. That's how they get you. And I think you're right. Or like, I've seen it and heard it out there. Like, everything, if you're a maker, everything is content. But then it's
Oh my
like, oh, I
gosh,
have to remember to pick up my phone and record what I'm doing or take pictures. And I mean, even at this quilting class, like, we were in a different city at a new quilt shop, and taking this class, and I personally didn't take a single picture until the last day. And then I took a picture of the mountain that was near us and a little park that was across the street, and that was it. And I was like, I didn't take a picture with my mom took a couple pictures, but even that, I was like, oh my gosh, we didn't take any pictures with the instructor, or like of
right.
just anything. I was like, what is wrong with me? But I don't know. I don't think anything's wrong with me necessarily. I just was trying to, like, stay focused and be in the moment and learn.
Be in the moment. Yeah. Literally be in the moment. That's a huge part of it.
Yeah.
I feel like I could do a lot more. I have to figure out the technicality of having my headphones in, because I listen to audiobooks or podcasts or things like that. And you can't, I don't think you can use the video option on your phone when you're using the audio option in another capacity. I know. See, this is where already I'm getting like, this is technical, but I'm like, it's like my first technical jump. If I could do that, otherwise, like, I just need to get another phone because I keep constantly, like, I'm listening to something through my phone. So therefore, I can't use my phone to record what I'm doing. But
Right.
the whole point is that I'm doing it while I'm listening to something. Anyways, do you see? It's like an endless cycle of, I'm like, should I just have two devices? Is that how people are doing it? Or do they just
Right.
listen to something else in the background and not use headphones? You know, these little quirks where you're like, can someone just explain how they're doing that to me? Because
Right. Like,
it feels like it shouldn't be hard, but
yeah. Like I just need
but
some
can I just,
steps to
I
follow.
just want to record without sound. Can I just use the video option and
Yeah.
record without sound so I can listen to what I want to while I'm recording something
Right.
else? Like, I feel like there needs to be that capacity.
Yeah, I feel like you should be able to, but also, what do I know?
I don't know. And somebody's probably listening to this going like, idiot, that is totally an option. And all you have to do is change this setting right here. And it's like, do.
Okay, so
like,
you're that
yes, but
person and you know how.
yeah,
Put it in the comments so that we know what to
please,
do. Help
please
us.
help us create more content for you.
Yeah, we're here for you. So be there for us. Thank you.
Right. I know. This is where I'm like, crowdsource, please. Who knows how to do this? And I will put stuff out like that occasionally on Instagram just to be like, okay, world, who knows how to do this? Like, I get, like, I've tried Googling it or I've tried looking it up, and you know, finding the current answer to anything is always tricky because do they have the same phone as you, or the same technology changes literally every day? So something that wasn't available a week ago could be available today.
Right.
So yeah, I'm like, if the world wants us to be recording everything on our phones, then I need to be able to multitask because I'm listening to stuff while I'm also recording.
Right. And that's, I think that's gonna be kind of the way things need to go, especially because of how things are. And I think, everybody's like, oh, I can't wait for us to get back to normal. And I'm like, I don't think we're ever going to get there again. Like, we're not going to go back to the way things used to be. And it's been,
no back.
There's no back. It's been 2.5 years and things still are a certain way. And, I can't ever fathom working for someone else like ever again. And like, that's different.
Right.
And if we're all content creators, all of a sudden we need services that are going to allow for that. If that's the expectation when you're a self-employed creative business, like, then make it work for us, please.
Right. Like I was telling you, I need to get a light for my desktop here so that I have better lighting for shooting opportunity, videography opportunities. And I want to be doing more taping of things in my own studio and offering courses that way and teaching my patterns that way, so that I can answer questions for people the way they want them, but it takes a bit to get all that set up and figure it out. And then God forbid you be a perfectionist of any kind and want to really like brand it and put it, yes, exactly. And put a business behind it and a name behind it. And so I just, I'm like, okay, baby steps. The first step for me would be figuring out if I need to buy like another recorder of some kind, or, have more than one phone going, and is like, what's the best, cheapest phone that takes good video? So I don't know.
Yeah.
See, now I'm just asking for advice. That's what I need now.
Right. Well, and I think that can be tricky too, because everybody has their opinion. Whatever they've done,
yes, they do.
now, they're like going to tell you to do that, but then the next person's going to be like, oh yeah, just get this little thing, and they've got their own way of doing it. So then it's almost like, okay, you have to weed through that to decide what's going to work for you, and then you have to adapt your own system. It's like, I'm just grateful I have a husband who has learned all the video editing and lighting and all this stuff. So I'm just like, help, and I just do my thing, and then he does his thing and it works. But I know not everybody has that, so it's like, it's
right.
tricky.
No, it's a really interesting time. Like my husband is he owns his own business and works in construction, so there's a lot of things that I have, I can be like, hey, this doesn't work. I need this built, blah, blah, blah. Like he can do all those things, but like he's not doing anything on a computer. Like I become the one who does all the technical things. And I'm like, wait, we're relying on my skills for that? Because
hold on.
Like I was never the person, I'm like, give me the directions and I can follow it probably, right? But
like I just need a manual. That's all I need.
right. Like not one that I scan into. Like you can't even buy your phone anymore and get a manual with it. You have to like look it up on the computer. And I'm like, what if my computer's not set up? And that's what I'm trying to do.
Right. You're like, sometimes this isn't meshing and it's not gonna work.
Yeah. I'm like, you guys are too clever for your own good. Just give me the paper. I promise I'll recycle it.
Yeah. Like, I'll put it to good use later, I swear.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I'll make some craft project out of it.
Right. I just saw a video of a lady. She got invited to do an art show that highlights like art, artists with disabilities, and she's going through cancer treatment, all this stuff. And so she's been saving up all the medical bills that she gets sent. She's like, I swear, even though I've clicked paperless a million times, I literally have no idea who this is. So I'm so sorry if this is your thing. I would credit you if I could. And if I find you again, I will credit you. But anyway, and so she took all the bills and she soaked them, shredded them up, and she turned them into new paper. And she couldn't get rid of all the imperfections and impurities, but I almost think that like that's the art behind it. It's like, I don't know. I think people get so creative with things like that. Whereas I'm like, I'll just recycle this. And she's like, I'm going to turn this into art. I was like, that's cool.
Like, you.
It's a statement for sure of like,
I'm going to go avoid cooking again.
I know,
like,
right?
I'm really good at Panda Express.
Yeah, right. I know. I was like, what do I want to cook for dinner? And then I'm like, I'm going to actually go to a restaurant because I don't want to cook.
Yeah. And I'm not the cook in our house. My husband definitely is the one who has more love for that. And I mean, partly because my creative energy is taken in other ways. Right. And so when I'm not sewing or designing or something like that, then I'm like, oh, maybe I could use that towards food, but then it's also short term.
Right.
I'm like, well, you get that immediate gratification for sure with cooking and baking, but you don't have anything that lasts because it has a literal shelf life. And so the shelf life of my quilts is forever.
Exactly. You're like, I'm going to focus on this.
Right.
And that's
apparently I need to leave a lasting impression.
Right. You're like, I'm going to make my mark on this world and I'm going to make something that lasts forever. But I think that's the cool thing about, creating fiber art is you're making something that can last generations, and you're making something that, could potentially be loved and cherished by someone you're not ever going to meet because you'll be long dead and there'll be a fresh, existence on this planet. And that to me is just like the mind-blowing part of being a quilter and making quilts for people. And I don't know if it's the imposter part or if it's just like excitement or the disbelief that it's real, but I just stop sometimes and go, oh, people have my creations all over the country. Like people in the East Coast have quilts that I've made for them, or, I'm working with people from all over the place that I've never would have met or never would have ever had the chance to talk to. But because I do what I do, and I've been able, like, I've met people that I've admired from afar, on Instagram or through the internet, and or in fabric shops as I've been shopping for my own stuff. And now I get to talk to people like you and be like, make that connection. And so I think, yeah, it's hard to focus on other stuff when you're like, look at what else I'm doing. That's way more important than baking cookies. But also, I want to eat all the
but for someone else, like it is, yeah, please bake them so we can eat them.
Yeah, but I need the people who
look at the eye candy that they are.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, Exactly. Oh, well, thank you so much for talking with me today. I really loved chatting with you and getting to know more about you.
Thanks.
And I'm very excited about your Nancy Drew line. Uh,
Thank
Clueless.
you.
Clueless is what it's called. And that's
Clueless.
through Windham
I
Fabrics.
know. Well, we're all clueless from Windham Fabrics. Yes.
Oh, I love it. And I'll put pictures up of it so our listeners can look if they
Thanks.
want to on our YouTube. And
I'm always like, oh, right. Yeah. Somebody might want to see it.
yeah, I'll put them up in here so people can see it. It's just so cute and such a fun look. It's like fun to see your perspective on like what you love about that story. And I think through your fabric you get to show people like this is how this makes me feel, and you can bring people into your world a little bit more. And I love that. So yay.
Yeah. Thanks. It's
So
been fun.
yeah. Yay. Yeah. So where can our listeners find you if they haven't seen you online? Where can they get to you?
The social media things under Angela Pingel,
Okay.
basically, is the easiest way. So there's the .com, Instagram, Facebook. I think Pinterest is still there. And like I said, I'm not on TikTok and I'm not on Twitter. So, because but that's just because I can't keep up with too many things.
Right. All right. Well,
So,
yeah, I mean it's a lot. And I think you just do what you can do and people will find you meet you where you're at, and that's good. And we'll link everything below so people can get to it really easily. And yeah.
thanks.
Well, thank
Yeah.
you so much again. And I'm really looking forward to your future projects and braving, like I made my mom do all the piecing of the books for the book nerd project we made because I was too scared to paper. I've never paper pieced yet. So maybe maybe someday soon. But
It's easier than you think. And that one's a pretty full one. It's literally like stitch here, which is a nice thing. It's like so right on this line, which in some ways is more helpful than like try to get that 1/4 inch seam allowance.
Right.
So yeah, it's not too bad, but it is kind of like going between making a quilt, making a bag. You just have to flip your brain into that thinking for a little bit. So I understand. And this is why I want to record a class where I can offer my suggestions for how to do that, because I have so many people who want to make that quilt and are intimidated by that aspect of creating that pattern. Like, nah, like you do want to be, you'd be totally fine. Like, I promise this is, like, if I can do it, you can do it. It is not the complex part of the world here.
Yeah.
I won't make you do any algebra for it.
Right. You don't even have to math it out. You just have to sew on the lines.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
it's color by number.
Yeah, really, right? I know. I'm like, I just need to do it. I can't quit being such a chicken and just do it. So I will. And when I do it, I will just share the photos and show you because.
Thank you. Yeah. And I love to post them. If you tag me on Instagram, especially, I always share them in my story so everybody can see all the creations, because I think it's just inspiring for all of us.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, thank you so much. And I'll link all your stuff below so people can get to you. And we will hopefully chat with you again soon sometime.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.